Welcome, everyone, to the NEVERS podcast, a podcast dedicated to the discussion and dissection of every episode of the upcoming HBO series, The Nevers, an original sci-fi drama epic from writer, producer, director, / everything, Joss Whedon. We're your one-stop shop for all the latest news on The Nevers. You'll also catch us speculating and discussing everything leading up to and throughout the airing of The Nevers. If you'd like to follow us online, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All it is at HBO The Nevers. You can also visit our brand new website, hbothenevers.com, and stream our brand new podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, and anywhere else you stream your favorite podcasts. I'm one of your hosts, Gina, and on today's show we'll be discussing another confirmed production crew member for The Nevers, as well as disassembling social media posts by some of the staff writers, which I'm really excited about, and we'll also share our hopes versus expectations for the show before diving into our weekly mailbag to answer your submitted letters. But before we do all of that, I'd like to introduce my co-hosts. My usual co-host, Tage, couldn't join me today as he's currently on holidays, which hopefully is a lot of fun for him. So, however, we have two new additions to the Nevers podcast, which is really awesome, and it's obviously their first episode, and I'm really excited. So feel free to quickly introduce yourselves. Kelly and Dennis, just say hi.
Hey, this is Dennis.
Hey, it's Kelly. Nice to meet everyone.
Yay, I love hearing their voices. Now you guys will know how
Here we are.
Now you'll know how they sound like. Okay, so Tage and I have done a few episodes of this podcast, and I'm sure we'll get back into it. But Dennis and Kelly, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves, where you're from, when and how were you introduced to Joss's work, and what are some of your favorite works of his, which I know is a very crazy topic that could last like 5 hours, but...
Try to keep it short, yeah. Kelly, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I became a fan of Joss Whedon when Welcome to the Hellmouth premiered on the WB in 1997. So he has been in my life for over 20 years. Let's see, I'm also situated in Toronto, Ontario, so everybody knows. And so I became a huge fan of Buffy, and then from then on, of course, like I think so many people, if you became a fan of Joss Whedon in the 90s, watched every single thing that man has ever done. And that's essentially what I've done, and he has never led me astray. I have adored everything he has done, all of it. And my favorite work of his is Buffy the Vampire Slayer for many, many reasons. But I also absolutely adore Dollhouse. And this is definitely maybe a controversial thing to say, but I was more upset about the canceling of Dollhouse over Firefly.
Oh, wow.
No, I love it. Yes.
I adore Firefly, but there was definitely something dark and mysterious and absolutely fascinating and bigger than anything that he could have done, and that was Dollhouse. So that's where I am today, and I pretty much devour anything horror related. So doing anything Joss Whedon related, my two favorite things are horror and Joss Whedon, is really, really exciting to me. So I'm looking forward to all of this.
Yay. Thank you so much, Kelly. A really quick thing about me, I have not finished Dollhouse, which is the worst thing of life.
Oh, man.
I know. And that's a whole other long story. But I also love Dollhouse as well. Obviously, Buffy's my favorite, but Dollhouse is great. But thank you for that.
No problem.
Cool. It sounds like Kelly and I became fans of Joss Whedon on the exact same night. Because I also watched Welcome to the Hellmouth when it premiered. I was a freshman in high school at the time, and I was really into Mystery Science Theater 3000, and I thought, based on the movie, this show will be dumb and I can make fun of it.
Nice.
Just even from that opening, I was like blown away, and I had to convince my brother to watch it with me because we had to share the TV. And I remember just like turning to him and being like, "Whoa," expectations blown. So yeah, I think for the first year and a half, I watched it in secret, not telling my friends because it was like an embarrassing show title and everything. And then it turned out a lot of my friends were watching it also. And right now I'm doing another podcast, Buffy Virgin, with my one friend who's never seen it and the rest of us who have. And we're in the middle of like season 5 right now by the time I'm recording this.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm very much into Buffy still. So that's probably my favorite of his works. I don't know. Does Cabin in the Woods count as a Joss Whedon thing?
100%.
Yes.
4,000% yes.
Yeah, then that's my second for him.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a horror cartoonist, and I work for Peanuts as my day job. And I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me on. And I'm looking forward to the Nevers.
Oh, you guys are so cool. And I love both of your horror ties, so I'm sure you guys will both bring a lot of that into this podcast, which is awesome.
And maybe become best friends. Dennis, what's
Yay!
going on?
Do it. Thank you guys so much for that. Again, very excited to have you here. All right, so we have a new segment to this podcast, and it's titled The News Roundup, where we run through any bits of news that may have broken since our last episode, but isn't big enough to devote an entire segment to or an entire episode. But we still feel it's worth mentioning. So without further ado, this is our first news roundup, which is really exciting because on July 4th, 2019, that was the first day of principal photography on the Nevers, which is so exciting because when do you think they're going to start principal photography? Like, that was like the question. And there's like rumors and articles like, oh, it's going to start in June. I think at some point maybe people thought it was going to start even earlier, but there's still like no official news. However, on July 4th, Joss tweeted letting us know that filming had begun on his new sci-fi series. And it's his first series in over a decade. So filming is currently taking place in Dublin, Ireland, before moving to London, which is super exciting.
That is exciting. I assume that means that more than one person has been cast then, because it'd be a very lonely set.
One woman show. Actually, that's a really good point. When do you guys think they'll announce the rest of the cast?
I don't know. I mean, I got to guess, but...
Well, I mean, they've only announced one and they're starting filming now, so it has to be any time now. It's so mysterious, all of this.
It is, yeah.
Which I guess is really cool, like definitely building up the hype and anticipation for it, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
But obviously all of us have waited so long for a new Joss Whedon television show that it's like, cool, like, be mysterious, but at the same time, we're all dying. Like,
yeah, suspense killing us right now.
So last year, Production Weekly reported that filming for The Nevers would commence in June. But BECTU, the Media and Entertainment Union, is now reporting that principal production has been pushed to July, obviously, since it started July 4th, and will now wrap in March 2020.
So much time to wait.
Yeah.
So much time to wait, A, but B, man, that's like a long shoot, which makes sense, but that's really cool. It almost feels like a film.
Yeah, that's like some Game of Thrones level production going on.
Right. And actually, what are your guys' thoughts on Game of Thrones since The Nevers is an HBO series and Game of Thrones is, you know, their last biggest thing?
Yeah, that's a big subject.
I know.
I guess to me, it's like Game of Thrones is something I couldn't not watch if I wanted to interact with anybody in the world.
True.
You know, especially when it was on, it was such a big like this is what we're going to talk about on Monday, which is really interesting for like a fantasy show. Like, I think it's because I'm just such a like kid of the 80s and 90s when like nobody was talking about this kind of stuff, you know? So for this to be something you can talk about with everybody is still like crazy to me.
Yeah, that's true. There's pretty much any person, like people's moms and anyone is watching, you know, shows like Game of Thrones. Whereas you're right, I think in the 80s, 90s, it was a bit more niche. So you had very particular types of people watching those types of shows. So you're right. It's something that everybody is talking about. Except for me, because I have never watched Game of Thrones. So I don't have really much comment on that.
Whoa, bold.
Man, we agree on a lot of the same stuff because we're not going to get into this because that's a whole other podcast topic, but I watched the first 2.5 seasons of Game of Thrones and personally just didn't like it. However, I realized how incredible the acting and the production value and all of that is. I just personally didn't like it, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes complete
Yeah.
sense. I mean, you can dislike something but appreciate it for what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So So it's tough because for me, when you're like, oh, I've never seen Game of Thrones, I'm like, that is perfectly okay. But I know the rest of the world doesn't feel that way.
I know. But I know HBO puts out incredibly high quality content. Like I've watched The Sopranos, let's say, you know, not within the horror, fantasy, anything element, but I adored that show. So I know of the types of shows that they put out. So the fact that Joss Whedon is getting a show in such high caliber networking, you know, series, it's I'm so blown away. So I'm super curious and really excited and super happy for him to have landed this gig.
Yeah, did you guys watch, this is a different topic kind of, but did you watch Sharp Objects?
No, I want to.
Because that's a Marty Noxon show.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, that was really good also. Another HBO show by former Whedonite, I guess. I don't know.
Right.
Man,
nice. I've never even heard of it, so that's great.
Now I'm going to have to watch all this stuff. No, that's really cool. And you say that, like, even if you didn't watch Game of Thrones or love it or don't like it, we can all agree that the HBO as a network is a huge network for television shows. And it is really exciting that Joss gets to be a part of that. And again, we could talk about that for 5 hours. But let's move on to our first official topic after the news roundup. And it is confirmed production crew members. So we actually have a few new confirmed production crew members. The first one is set decorator Tina Jones. She's joined the crew. If you're unfamiliar with her, she has worked on Spider-Man Far From Home, which I still haven't seen, and I want to go leap up from my chair after recording this, and I want to go watch it. She's also worked on Aladdin, Game of Thrones, Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, Assassin's Creed, all this crazy stuff. King Arthur. Cool. Yeah, so what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I really loved the sets in Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom. And Game of Thrones has amazing sets, so I think this sounds cool. There's, did you guys see Fallen Kingdom?
Ooh, no. Like a dino lair?
It's got a really dope, like, giant lair thing going on. Because they move off the island towards, like, this crazy rich guy's super mansion in Northern California. You know how there's, like, all these ancient castles in Northern California that have, like, giant underground layers for holding dinosaurs and also museums in them? So that set was awesome. So that sounds really cool.
Ooh, good to know. Did you guys see Aladdin?
I didn't, no.
No.
I'm one of the... It's weird. It's gotten such great box office numbers, but I'm one of the only people that I know that have seen it. But yeah, the set for Aladdin is, like, unbelievable. The amount of detail and the way it looks is just... Obviously, adapting anything is difficult, but they really made the animated film come to life, so it's great.
That's great.
Clearly, we're already a fan of her work, and I've said this before, and I'll always say it again. Any women that we could get to work on this show, the more the better.
Exactly.
Not just this show, but in general. So it's super cool that a woman is the set decorator.
Yeah, like, I mean, I haven't watched any of these things that she's involved with, but, you know, I've seen photos, and I can tell that... You know, they're incredibly elaborate, you know, so much attention to detail. And Assassin's Creed, though I've played some of the games, I didn't watch the live action movie on it. I mean, I'm sure it looked beautiful. So I think, even though I haven't watched these things, I think, you know, the show's in good hands.
Yeah, totally. Cannot agree more. And again, super exciting that we're having such high quality individuals work on this show. Teague and I have said in the past that it really feels like Game of Thrones in the sense of they're really taking this seriously as if it's a feature film and not just a television show, which a lot of television, modern television does feel like that, but still everyone's credits is mostly film and big epic films. And that's really exciting and really telling in my opinion. So the next person we have that is confirmed is David Pearce. He's been hired as a props painter. He's worked on Amazon's Jack Ryan series, Peter Rabbit 2, which I'm weirdly way too excited about. He's done episodes of Black Mirror, and he's also done Kingsman: The Secret Service. So again, obviously, it seems like David Pearce has done TV as well, but also big budget films. So, super cool. And what I love about Joss Whedon's works is I feel like a lot of Whedon fans, we get obsessed with not just him, but like the writers and the crew and whoever does the score. Like the Whedonverse is such a big family and we're just such big fans of everyone involved. So it's going to be cool to really get to know the works of other people that we might really get into, you know?
Completely. It becomes a bit of a Joss Whedon family. And if you become involved in any of his work, I mean, I think a lot of people go on to do wonderful, great things. So it's a good opportunity for everyone.
Exactly. Can you guys imagine, like, being asked to be a part of the Nevers?
If I can wear a Victorian kind of ball gown, then I will gladly.
Yes. That would be amazing. Cool. And then our last confirmed production crew member, another movie veteran, and her name is Jane Petrie, and she's been hired as costume designer for the series. Her credits include Outlaw King, Suffragette, War Machine, 28 Weeks Later, and season 2 of Netflix The Crown. And what are your thoughts on her? And have you guys seen any of these?
I've only seen 28 Weeks Later. It's one of my favorite horror movie sequels. I don't recall necessarily great costume design in it, and I haven't seen the other things, but I am a huge fan of costume design, so I'm kind of just excited to see what kind of work she does, really, on this show anyways.
Yeah, I've seen Outlaw King. I thought it was good. So, I mean, that's a lot of period outfits because it's Scottish history.
Oh, that's on Netflix, right?
Yeah, it's got, what's his name? One of the Chris's in it.
Chris Pine, I think?
Yeah, Pine.
Right. Okay, yes. I haven't seen it, but I recognize that. Great.
Sounds interesting. Do you know, I didn't look this up. Is Jane Petrie any relation to Doug Petrie?
I know, right? That was the first thing that came up in my head. Like, I would not be surprised. She also did the costume design. Let me see here, because I'm on her IMDb page. Have you guys seen Moon with Sam Rockwell?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's also done that. I love that film.
Me too.
But I also have seen Suffragette, and I love the costumes in that. It obviously takes place in 1912 London. So honestly, I feel like if you're a good costume designer, even if you haven't done period stuff, like you'll be able to figure it out. But clearly she has. So that's always a great sign, you know?
Yep,
Yeah.
Exactly.
I wonder if Moon is a clue that there'll be spacemen in this.
Exactly. Hey, anything could happen in this show. Since it's science fiction, you know?
I literally know nothing. Anything could happen.
It's true. Awesome. Any more thoughts on any of the confirmed production crew members? Again, I feel like they're really trying to get people that have worked on a lot of films, which is great and super exciting.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I mean, I'd say, like, one thing we're going to have to watch for is, like, who's photographing this, because, you know, all the best sets and props and stuff don't matter if, like, it's shot poorly, but...
Definitely, yeah, our cinematographer and everything. Yep.
I cannot agree more. I don't know why I'm blanking out on the cinematographer, so I'm going to quickly research this. However, luckily, what I do know is it is the same cinematographer as The Avengers.
Oh.
Oh yeah, Seamus McGarvey. How could I forget his name? Seamus McGarvey. So clearly, him and Joss Whedon have worked together before. So that is, when Seamus McGarvey was announced, I feel like besides the amazing writers' room, which we'll actually get to in a second, which is our second topic, I screamed out loud because I love the way the first Avengers is shot. So I don't know if I could get more hyped for this show. Like, I feel like it's impossible. It's impossible.
I can tell.
Okay, which brings us to topic number 2, disassembling some of the writers' room's different social media posts. So over the course of 4 months, 2 of the Nevers staff writers, God, I hope I pronounced this correctly, Madhuri Shakar and Lori Penny, took to Twitter and Instagram to express their excitement for the series and to prepare fans for what's to come. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but I got pretty excited reading what they had to say, and their excitement and enthusiasm for the show is so infectious and genuine. And I'm actually Twitter buddies with Lori Penny. We've tweeted each other a few times. I don't know why she follows me. She's way too cool to follow me, but so yeah, let's revisit their social media posts. These are from around November, and let's share our thoughts about what they had to say. So back in November, Lori Penny tweeted this, and do any one of you want to read her different posts?
I can do that. I'll just go left to right here with the images I have. She said, "The reason I'm not tweeting or posting new articles a lot right now is that I'm working in the writer's room on a super amazing, awesome TV show and finishing a book in the evenings. I can't wait to finally be able to tell you guys about it. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, it's going to be epic." Then another tweet said, "I still can't say anything, but the show I'm working on, but I want to make one thing clear. All you cosplayers out there are going to lose your fucking minds."
Yes.
And then in February, she tweeted, oh geez, I never know what TLDR means.
I don't know either.
I feel like I should know it, but I also don't know.
Oh geez, it's terrible. I'm not super hip on social media.
Tone Loke Doctor. No, sorry. I was just being an idiot.
Oh, wait. I think it means use as a dismissive response to a lengthy online post.
Too long something. Anyway, so she said, "Finally allowed to say that the show I'm working on is the Nevers for HBO, and it's not out until next year, and I already can't wait for you lot to see it. Holy shit, it's going to be so epic. Hey cosplayers, you're welcome. Hey fandom, you're welcome. Hold on to your bustles." I'm pumped about bustles, really, from all of that.
Oh my god. Amazing.
Let's see. And there was that, and then... Sorry, there was one more, and she said, "Unfortunately, I may have had an atypical entry into the screenwriting world. I now expect all writers' rooms to be diverse, exciting, majority female spaces where we all share snacks and respect each other."
Oh my god.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds pretty different from what I've heard of writers' rooms.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not going to be full of a bunch of old white dudes, so that's fantastic.
Yes. And I feel like, luckily, I feel like Joss Whedon has always had women in his writers' rooms, but it's
Completely.
also exciting that this one seems a little more diverse.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. And I don't know the names of some of the other writers, but I do know there's definitely Asian writers. There's a Black woman playwright, and I don't know their names at the top of my head, but even just knowing that, it's like, oh my god, amazing.
Completely. And it's, yeah, like you said, Joss has always been fantastic about involving women in his work and all aspects of the work. So not that that's, any of this is really all that surprising to me, but you're right, the absolute diversity we're seeing as a, compared to, in the 90s, and that probably wasn't as much of as a, something that's on everybody's minds at the time. But I mean, that's pretty fantastic. And I already could tell that the costume type in this show, oh yeah, cosplayers going to be into it. We're going to have our steampunk folks all into it. It's going to be fantastic. This is probably going to be his best show with regards to costumes, compared to, I guess the last time would have been Firefly. And those were kind of like subdued. This is going to be like fancy Firefly.
Fancy Firefly, yes. That's such a great way to put it. Any other reactions about her tweets before we move on? I actually love the fact that there's some writers in the writer's room that aren't typically screenwriters. I think that really opens up how they're going to think about storytelling. Especially in 2019, I feel like every story has been told, right? So you have to find new inventive ways. And in my opinion, that's the best thing about Buffy. Like, it almost invented all the amazing ways to write episodes of TV. But I think having other writers that aren't usually just screenwriters will help with that.
Yeah, it is interesting. I looked up Lori Penny's info, and it seems like she's written a lot of journalism and nonfiction books. So that's just a different point of view to bring into the writer's room, to have an experienced journalist and cultural writer than what we usually see. So this should be interesting.
Yeah, I love that. I definitely think we should. Clearly, she does research very well, and clearly she's a feminist. So it's cool to have, I don't know, someone that's modern and really up on it and where feminism is now to be in this room, which is great. And now we have some social media posts from, again, I'm so sorry, I will pronounce this name correctly one day, Madhuri Shakar. And Dennis, would you like to read these?
All right, sure. All right. Oh, damn. Miss all the beautiful people in this photo and the gorgeous, funny, sexy Victorian characters that emerge from Joss's brilliant brain. The Nevers is going to be bonkers and incredible. And it's retweeting a Joss tweet that looks like it has, the only person I recognize is Jane Espenson. So that's cool.
Yes, and I remember that tweet that Joss did. I believe Douglas Petrie is also in it, which is awesome.
Yeah, and then, sorry, I haven't read this one yet, so I'm going to be stumbling a little. Since Joss tweeted about us this week, this seems like the right time to talk about one of the best things that's ever happened to me. Last fall, I got my first TV writing job, and of all things, it was writing for The Nevers, the sci-fi Victorian epic created by Joss Whedon, coming to HBO in the near future. I got to work with my creative heroes, Joss and Jane Espenson, and beautiful, diverse writers' room where I was one of 3 brown women, and where going to work every day was a joy and an adventure in the best way. I got to write 2 episodes, and one of them with the amazing, wonderful, genius person and dear friend, Lori Penny. We wrapped the room for season 1 2 months ago, and I still miss it. And I am so excited to see the show with everyone else when it comes out. It's going to be everything I love. Victorian aesthetic, women fighters, sci-fi magic, charismatic villains, daring heroes, delicious couples to ship. And I still can't believe I got to be part of it. # the Nevers.
Oh my God.
Man, that's everything I love too.
Oh my God. That is like unreal. Like everything she listed, so in a previous episode, Take and I briefly mentioned how we think the villains are going to be. And in my opinion, I think Joss Whedon comes up with the best villains and writes the best villains. Like Loki in the first Avengers film is so much more complex than, in my opinion, what any other writer would have given him. Like the fact that Loki felt propelled to try to take over Earth because if he didn't, Thanos would kill him. Like even just having a motivation like that, like Joss really thinks about his villains and wants to give them motivations. But my favorite thing Joss does with his villains is that they usually have fun. And I think that's what a lot of writers miss about villains. They don't have them have fun, so then we can't really grapple on to them at all. So the fact that Madhuri said charismatic villains, I am like dying with happiness right now. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, Joss is great about having everybody be very thought out, well-written, and well-versed characters, whether you're good or bad or in between. And a lot of those end up being in between.
Yes.
But yeah, no, he does a fantastic job with everyone.
Yeah, I actually, maybe it's for hopes and expectations, but I created like a little bit of lists of hopes for villains that I was going to share for that. But it's just entirely based on my random guesses and not based on any tweets. Because, yeah, I'm always aiming towards the villains.
Oh, please. I'd love to hear this. Like,
yeah, I could talk about it now. I just was, because it's Victorian.
Yes.
And I was like, that's such a era for like the wellspring of monsters, but so many of the like, Frankenstein and Dracula we know and stuff. So I was thinking about Penny Dreadful characters and like weird urban legends of the time. So, do you guys know Spring-Heeled Jack?
No.
Vaguely.
He was like this weird urban legend that turned into a Penny Dreadful. He was like a devil-like character that would pop up and scare people and could jump up to 10 feet, which is the name. But kind of got dressed in like a proto-Batman outfit, but had glowing eyes and could breathe blue fire. So I think that would be a really interesting setup for a villain that they could take off of, and obviously is in the public domain. Another would be Varney the Vampire, which was another Penny Dreadful vampire, a really early vampire story. And it's one of the first to mention fangs or sharpened teeth, but it's kind of like it's an aristocratic vampire who's stalking a particular family. So it seems very like Dark Shadows, but I just love the name Varney the Vampire, aka the Beast of Blood. So I don't know. Those are just things.
I'm loving both of those like a little too much. Like just because like I love how things could be a springboard, right? So that first one you said, like if that creature could jump 10 feet, what can they do with that?
Yeah.
How can they make that? And they could super creative and like different. And how could they infuse that into the plot? So that's so cool.
Yeah, just for us. Come on.
And I do really hope they have at least one vampire just for fun, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's just for us, just for the fans. Like, you would think a sci-fi Victorian show would have one.
For sure. Thinking about it, Firefly was strictly, it was kind of his little bit of a sci-fi, action Western type deal, but there was a light, very, very light horror element to it with the Reavers.
Yeah.
It was just like that undercurrent. They're kind of like those big, bad, scary type creatures, whereas the rest of it was all human-related drama. So I'm always hoping there's going to, because as a horror fan, I'm always hoping there's going to be a little bit of horror elements to things, but Dollhouse it was all human monsters, which I also enjoy, but I think Joss Whedon does a really great job with doing sci-fi and human drama, so if there's no horror, I would be fine with that. But I do like the idea of, if it's set in Victorian times, having, like Dennis was saying, some type of play on some little horror or literary kind of references from that time. But really, I got that from Penny Dreadful, the show that I absolutely love. And that was a show that I love. Since Joss Whedon hasn't had a TV show, I haven't loved anything as much on TV, except for Penny Dreadful. And they brought in all those Victorian England era monsters like the Frankenstein. We have Dorian Gray. We have vampires and stuff like that. So that kind of was
It scratched an itch.
Yes, thank you. That's exactly what I was looking for that type of Victorian horror gothic element. So I think if they stuck with keeping it in the sci-fi realm with maybe like a hint of little bit of monsters, but mainly human monsters, but the villains are super interesting, then I would also be fine with that.
Both is good.
Yeah, right? It's just all good.
Thank you. That was everything you guys said was great. I completely agree. One last thing I want to say about Matt Hariye-Shakar's Instagram post about that long list of amazing stuff that we're all excited about. Shipping in fandom. I have a very love-hate relationship with shipping.
I don't even know what that means. Please enlighten me.
Ooh, I will. So, and even me, I don't even think I have an appropriate description of it. However, shipping two characters, in my opinion, means you really love their relationship and dynamic. That's what I think it means. The rest of the world thinks it means you want two characters to end up together. So shipping is basically like, I love this person. So I'm sorry, I'm going to say this. I'm a huge Buffy and Angel girl. Sorry if anyone else isn't.
I definitely am too.
Okay, amazing. My twin sister is a big Buffy and Spike girl. That's the only thing we fight about ever. Ever. But hey, no, I can still appreciate some Buffy and Spike stuff. But anyway, so I ship Buffy and Angel. That's what I would describe that as. So with shipping, though, I think, especially nowadays in fandom, I personally think fandom focuses a little bit too much on shipping, where it becomes that's almost the entire thing that the fandom just focuses on, instead of like, oh man, this episode had amazing writing. Oh man, the cinematography in this episode. Instead, it's like, oh, I love that this person talked to this person and that's it. So that's my hate side of shipping and fandom, is like, I get it. Like, I will die for ships. However, like, please, that's not the only thing, you know?
Story takes a backstage to smooching.
Yeah.
Story over smooches. Well, I would say even if I love a couple, let's say Angel and Buffy, but I want a much more complex relationship and characters and as individuals, which I think Joss Whedon is good at, is even if there are relationships, romantic or not, everybody is still their individual person. They have their agency, they have their autonomy, and like they are their own people. And, you know, yes, now that I know about this shipdom, I'm going to call it that, I guess, right now.
Yes.
I think that's incredibly superficial because there's so much more to these characters than the romantic interests. So,
yeah,
yes,
that ship has sailed.
Oh, these ship puns. This is great.
No, I'm so glad you guys agree. There are some podcasts for other fandoms that I will not name because that's a whole other topic, that literally the podcast only focuses on, they act like it's a podcast about this specific fandom, but they only talk about this one ship, and it drives me, absolutely insane. So I'm glad you guys agree that, yes, you can be obsessed with two characters' relationships, but A, that's not the point of their characters. B, that's not the point of a specific show. So we are definitely, I have a feeling when The Nevers comes out, will all respectfully talk about ships, and it won't be the entire episode. So
Yeah, definitely won't be.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm getting into, there's a weird thing kind of happening on the Buffy Virgin podcast where I think what we as the reviewers are doing is like critically analyzing Spike, and like, I mean, we're in season 5 and we're like, he's still a villain. What he's doing with his obsession with Buffy at this point is creepy, and we're trying to say that, and the reactions from our listeners have been like surprisingly angry.
Yes,
but also then we're like, well, maybe we should feed this anger because it's obviously creating
smart
drama. But it's interesting because it's such strong, passionate reactions from like fans of the show, and I mean, I got to respect that passion, even if I feel like it's getting in the way of analysis.
No, that's so fascinating that you say that, and I promise listeners we won't go on a huge tangent about this. But so my sister and one of my best friends, Eve, so Eve had never seen Buffy and Angel. We just finished Buffy and Angel, and she had the same reaction. Like around season 5, she was a huge Buffy and Angel girl. She really started liking Spike and Buffy's like dynamic, and she was so fascinated and loved the way that Spike was obsessed with Buffy, where I'm on the opposite side of it. I don't like it, but anytime we try to talk about it, my sister and Eve would get very defensive, but they're so intelligent, obviously, and they have those opinions. So I really think, and I think this is the best part about Joss Whedon's storytelling, everything hits people differently, right? So something about Spike's obsession with Buffy, they absolutely love, and they feel it in their souls. And for me, I feel nothing. And that's actually great. I think the best type of art people react to completely differently. So it makes sense to me that you're getting that passionate feedback, because that's how I feel like in real life with my sister and my friend Eve. And I'm by myself, though, so I kind of have to stick it to them. But at the same time, it is really fascinating to hear their perspective, and that shows me that it's just great art, that you can really dive into it and analyze it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my season 5 talk. I'm sure we'll have podcast episodes about Buffy in the future, I'm sure.
It completely is hard not to.
Very, very true. At least once every episode. Okay, so let's move on to our last and final and third topic. Hopes versus expectations for the Nevers. When we all heard that Joss Whedon was returning to television with a sci-fi Victorian epic, you probably did what I did and immediately started envisioning the entire world of the Nevers. The stories, the characters, the powers the characters might possess, and maybe even weapons that they'll yield. So I thought it would be an interesting topic to discuss what our hopes for the Nevers are in terms of the stories being told, themes, characters, scope, and what we all hope to get out of it emotionally, and compare that to what we think the show will actually deliver. Ooh, so who would like to go first? This is a very fascinating topic, actually. So, okay, I guess first hopes. What do you guys hope the Never has in terms of story?
I just want to shout out that this is a really good topic, and the way it was framed is like really smart to be like, one thing that's interesting to me is like how much too much expectation and too much specific expectation can ruin an experience, right?
Totally.
Like,
Completely.
It wasn't exactly what I wanted. Well, then you should have written it, you know?
Right.
So I think just setting it as hopes versus expectations, and that we, obviously I'm already like, oh, I hope it has these really specific random monsters in it. But my real hope is just that it's good. I just see so much like that. The time period sees so much setup for me that he's already done The Gentleman, to have some sort of gentlemanly villains.
The gentlemen are coming by, looking in windows, knocking on doors. They need to take 7 and they might take yours.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
such a time period for gentlemen.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I hope it's good. That's my hope.
That's a wonderful hope.
A universal hope.
Universal hope.
I think for me, I normally go into any shows or movies with minimal expectations because I just want it to, to show me what it wants to show me, and I'll think about it afterwards, but for Joss Whedon, because he truly has never let me down. I've read comics that he's done. I've watched literally everything. And I'm not even big into superhero movies, but when I heard that, he was doing the Avengers, I'm like, oh yeah, no, he's a super nerd. This is going to be fantastic. And I mean, it's one of my favorite movies that I've seen from that universe. It was well done. And I could tell that there was Joss Whedon in it, so I loved that. So my only expectation is that it's going to be the same Joss Whedon style and caliber of work.
Oh yeah,
with
totally.
There's going to be some wonderful comedy that his comedy makes me laugh still. I watch Buffy episodes now and I'm still laughing. I love his sense of humor, his wholesome sense of humor, and he always has elements. He's not afraid to touch on, let's say, quote unquote taboo subject matter in movies, or well, usually he can shine in his TV shows for sure. So I'm just expecting him, to have the humor, touch upon important themes. And I know it's going to be set in Victorian times, but it's also sci-fi. So I think him incorporating current issues, social issues and problems into his show, I think he's really great at doing that. So I expect him to have humor, elements of, current social issues, women's issues, and having strong feminist themes, because that are all the things that he really is good at. And of course, great storytelling. That I am not worried about. But my main expectations are those three things. We should just expect them.
What I love about what both of you have said is that I feel like that's 100% guaranteed, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
or maybe I'm like way too excited, but like for you guys, the hopes versus expectations I feel like are the same. I don't think you should hope for those things. I feel like they're going to be in it.
Yeah.
Honestly. And again, maybe I'm way too naive, but
no, I 100% think those are my three expectations. My hope is that everything, just like Dennis said, I hope it's good, but I hope that combining all those things with actors and these writers and the cinematography and putting everything together creates just this wonderful, I don't like the word masterpiece, but like this wonderful, beautiful, epic, intense, fun show.
Yeah. I love that.
In terms of very specific, since you were talking about weapons and weapons they might wield, it would be cool if Buffy's weapon just showed up in the background somewhere,
Some like Easter eggs.
Yes.
Just like a little bit of an homage. Or Frey shows up.
Yeah.
Yes.
What if there's, just like Slayers running around back then,
yes.
too, I don't know.
Yep. Or they come across a Slayer. Oh my god.
They
so
wouldn't
cool.
even have to identify it as a Slayer. Just like, wow, this lady's super strong and is punching the vampire really good.
Yes. Oh my god. Oh, see, now this is a hope.
Yeah.
that might not happen, but I love it.
Yeah, I think it's not an expectation, but a hope is I personally adore the reusing of Whedonverse actors because they're fantastic.
Yes.
So I'm hoping that we see some familiar faces because I don't at all know this woman that they've cast for the lead role. So I'm hoping that I see some familiar faces because I love the actors he's used. So that's my hope.
Totally.
Yeah, totally.
And I feel like he loves doing that,
Yeah.
He loves like reusing certain actors, so I feel like there has to be some Whedon alum in there.
That's my hope.
Just little Easter eggs.
Yeah. I'm not expecting it because I don't think that's a fair expectation, but that's my one main hope.
I love that. I think for me, and again, I could spend 5 hours on this topic, so I'll keep it super short to one thing. I still think the storytelling in Buffy and in all of his shows is still groundbreaking, is still unique, is still so ahead of its time. Like, I personally think television nowadays still doesn't touch what Buffy did. So if Joss was so ahead of his time back then for Buffy, I hope the Nevers feels like that for the future of television. Like, I want him to keep pushing the television medium. That is a very huge expectation or hope. But I think if anyone could do it, it's Joss. And I don't even care if that takes until like the second or third season. Like, I'm not necessarily saying, oh, that has to be in the first season. I just hope eventually it has more than one season. But I also hope this show does that. Because I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I'm at work or I'm hanging out with friends that bring other friends that I don't know. And like, they don't know who Joss Whedon is, or like they've never seen any of his TV shows. And I want the Nevers to be the one thing that this modern audience, like everyone has seen, besides the Avengers, obviously. So that way I don't have to describe who Joss Whedon is, or like I don't have to try to convince people, hey, you should really watch Buffy, you know? Like, I want this to be so good, everyone has to go watch Buffy immediately after, you know? And that's huge, but...
Yeah, no, I love that. It'll be like Buffy for the 21st, I want to say 21st century, but you know what I mean? Like, I want Buffy for, you know, the 2019, 2020, I guess it's coming out 2020, but like the 2020s. And I think
Buffy for the 20s.
Yes. I think that is a beautiful, wonderful thing that you said. You're right. Because some people everybody knows the Avengers, but they don't know that Joss Whedon wrote that movie and directed that movie. That's not what they think of. They don't care. It's like, oh, the Avengers movie.
Right, exactly.
I went in and I saw his name on it. It's like written by, and I was like screaming because I was so happy and proud. But like, people don't really know, you know. So I think that is a wonderful thing. And I also, now that you brought that up, hope that is a thing that happens, and it's kind of like the gateway into the Whedonverse.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yes. God, can you imagine if Buffy's like, well, I personally think the Buffy fandom is huge still, and in a weird way is mainstream, but could you imagine if it blew up like times 100? That would be insane.
Completely, in a most wonderful way.
Yeah. I like these like, I hope it's groundbreaking in a way I've never seen before. I hope this show just blows my mind. No pressure.
I know.
I really like one-off episodes. I think I tend to like those more than long-form storytelling. And I know the show only has 10 episodes, right? 10 episodes to do
Yes,
a story.
I believe so, yes.
I really hope somewhere in the middle of the season there's just a one-off episode. Those tend to be my favorite. I get kind of frustrated with long-form storytelling just because it's like one episode bleeds into the next. You can never really specifically define a favorite episode, you know?
Right.
And I think Whedon's best episodes have been those kind of weird one-offs instead of like the overall arc story. So I kind of hope there's something like that.
Oh my God, that is such a good point. I've never thought of it like that. That his best episodes are one-offs, so my mind is like blown right now.
They can definitely sometimes be the best, yes.
That's right, yeah.
Oh my God, because I actually prefer... His one-offs aren't filler episodes at all. But I do prefer like serialized, like this episode leads to the other one. But you're so right. Like the body is a one-off in a way. And it's like one of the best things I'll ever see. So you're so right. Oh, mind blown. But yeah, obviously he's very good at those. So I definitely think, I know we only have 10 episodes, but knowing him and knowing Jane and Douglas and what the awesome other writers in the writer's room, I feel like there has to be at least one.
Yeah, just some vignette, you know, some little vignette of something weird.
Something weird, and I'm sure that specific episode will make us fall in love with the characters even more, you know?
Yeah.
All right, that was a great topic, and I'm sure we'll keep talking about that as this podcast goes on. So our last little segment here are the listener submitted letters. And these are always a lot of fun because our listeners are very smart, obviously. So... now it's time to check in with all of those.
I love that you guys are getting letters already.
I know. It's so exciting. So cool. So let's open up the Nevers mailbox. If you have a question or a comment for us about the Nevers or anything Whedon related, write it in a letter and email it to us at theneverspodcast@gmail.com, and we'll be sure to read it on an upcoming episode, or feel free to tweet us. Remember, it's at HBO The Nevers. So our first letter today comes from Jordan Foons, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing names, that's what I do. And Jordan writes, we don't know very much about the show, but we know that it's an HBO show done by Joss Whedon. What do you think the show's chances are for winning an Emmy? Great question.
Very low. It'll just get a makeup Emmy in season 2, and that's it.
So specific.
I don't normally watch a lot of things that win any awards whatsoever, so I don't really have much to say on that. I have no idea whatsoever. I'm sorry.
Yay, loving things that don't win awards. That's amazing. It's really weird. I'm not a TV person. I feel like the only TV I've watched is Joss Whedon in a way, and the BBC Sherlock, and that's it. However, one of the very first things for some reason that I thought of when it was announced that HBO was producing The Nevers is Joss Whedon needs to win an Emmy for television. Like, it needs to have happened for decades, so I personally think with the caliber of the cast and crew, I definitely think it's going to be a front runner. Like, there's no way, like, at the very least for writing, but I also think there's no way it can't be for everything. Because if Game of Thrones did, and sorry for any Game of Thrones fans out there, but I hopefully think The Nevers will be better, then I don't see how The Nevers wouldn't be nominated for Emmys and win them. But I'm very biased, so.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, it does feel like they're setting this up to be prestige TV. So
yeah.
The prestige needs to win awards, but yeah, I just knowing Joss Whedon's history of being skipped a lot, I wouldn't, it's hard to break streaks like that.
I know. This is his time to shine.
It is, finally. Great question, Jordan. And again, I'm sure we'll talk about that more in the future as well. Our next letter is from Victor on Twitter, and he writes, do you think HBO and Joss are planning a surprise appearance at this year's Comic-Con with the cast, and that's why there haven't been any more cast announcements since Laura Donnelly's last month? I would die. I am going to San Diego Comic-Con, and I believe you are too, right, Dennis?
Yeah, I'm going to be working the Peanuts booth, so I'm looking forward to being there. I did look through...
That is super cool, and I'm totally going to visit.
Awesome. Yeah, we should plan to meet in real life.
Yes.
I did look through... all the panels got announced just recently for Comic-Con, and I did look through them yesterday, and I didn't see anything about the Nevers, but it wouldn't be a surprise if it was announced.
I feel like since they're filming, I mean, a lot of casts have, while they're filming, like, flown in for the weekend, so that's not necessarily an excuse, but I feel like since they just started filming, I don't know if they would not waste time. It's definitely not a waste of time, but there's no just HBO panel, like, announcing everything that's coming up. So because of that, I don't personally think there'll be a panel. I would die of happiness, but in a weird way, I'd rather them keep filming and then hopefully next year, once they have footage and things to promote, that there'll be like some epic panel.
Yeah.
That's my hopes. Obviously, I'd love it for both years, but I personally don't see it.
Yeah, the only Joss Whedon panels I saw were, one was about a Firefly cookbook, and the other was about, I think, another Firefly one. So it's still going strong at Comic-Con.
Yes.
Were you there last year? They were doing like a Buffy scavenger hunt.
Yes, I tried, but the line, so basically the scavenger hunt was like, they would give you clues and you would have to try to figure out which booth to go to get the next clue, in a way.
Yeah.
By the time I tried to do it, the lines for the booths were so long because there's so many people doing it, which was amazing. I was like, yay, Buffy fandom, still going strong. But that meant that, like, I didn't have the time to finish it. So I was like, I guess I'll try it again another time. Hopefully they'll do it again.
Yeah.
Did you try to do it?
No, I couldn't because of my work schedule, but I did just randomly run across one of the clues, and the person, because there was I forget what it was, there was somebody dressed as a vampire that I just walked past, and I was like, that's a Buffy vampire.
Nice.
So they told me I couldn't do it unless I was part of the scavenger hunt, and I was like, well, can't you just it's just a sticker or something, can't you just give that to me? And they did, which was nice.
Oh my god, yes.
And I did get my picture taken with a Buffy cosplayer dressed from Prophecy Girl. So it was like...
Very nice.
Yay. San Diego Comic-Con's the best. So I'm actually going to pass out little business cards for our podcast that I recently ordered.
Fantastic.
So,
thank you.
Listeners, if any of you are going to San Diego Comic-Con, I will hopefully find you. And we'll pass out these business cards, and if you take a picture with it, a selfie, or I can take a picture, we will tweet that photo on our Twitter.
Ah, nice.
So, yeah, little plug for that. That's coming up soon. Cool. So thank you for your letter, Victor. We're calling them letters instead of questions because it's Victorian era. So we have 2 letters left. Third letter is from Sarah V, who wrote, "The Nevers is about a group of superpowered women being hunted by relentless enemies. This group of women are probably the protagonists of the show. Do you think the antagonists will then be men, or will Joss do something that few seem to be interested in doing and have the antagonists also be women, like I'm hoping for, or maybe a mixture?" I absolutely love this question. I think we briefly talked about it in another episode that Tage and I recorded. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
It sounds cool. Yeah, could have. This is a really specific hope, right?
Right.
I would not be upset if that happened. That sounds cool.
I think it'd be highly predictable if they did, females with superpowers and all of the bad guys are men. I think that would be pretty predictable. I'd like a mixture, just like how it would be more in real life.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see everyone, because everyone can be bad. So let's just make it realistic.
Yeah, no, I love that. In a way, obviously, that's feminist, right? Because, like, if guys could be villains, so can women,
Yeah,
so I
exactly.
totally love that and agree with that. And it's weird because one of my favorite things about season 6 of Buffy is the fact that obviously Warren is the quintessential toxic man in every way.
Yes.
And I think that's very powerful, obviously, when the show features a female lead. So I guess my hope is I would still love if there's a big bad to be a man, but there definitely should be awesome female villains. Like, I love female villains. I definitely think, even though there has been more recently, I still think there's a lack of them and them being complex.
Yes.
So I would definitely, obviously love female villains. One of my favorite recent ones was Hela in Thor Ragnarok.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So,
Completely.
I was telling somebody recently that Ragnarok's probably my favorite of the Marvel movies. And they're like, you just like it because of Cate Blanchett. And I was like, that's such a random thing to accuse me of.
Yeah. And also, why? Why? Who cares?
Yeah.
True. Right? This is a whole other tangent, but I love the Ragnarok as well, and I feel like it just feels so Joss Whedon-y. Like, in a weird way, it feels like Joss wrote it, and I know the screenwriter is a huge Joss Whedon fan, and, like, there's so many callbacks to, like, the first Avengers.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I love that movie so much. Okay. A final letter from D Man. He has the best name. D Man, if it's his real name.
He's the man.
Right? Exactly. He writes, I've noticed that HBO shows have a tendency to come out every other year. Do you think the Nevers will follow this release schedule, i.e. season 1 coming in 2020 and season 2 in 2022? He writes, I hope not. Generally, for Whedon shows, the first season is good, but the second and third season are exponentially greater. That's a wonderful last question. I'm not too familiar with HBO shows, but clearly it seems like they have a tendency every 2 years. What do you think, Dennis? Did Game of Thrones do that?
Well, Game of Thrones had its own weird thing going on. I don't recall its exact schedule, but it was like, because it would take like 2 years off and then come back with like a half season because they were doing their own weird thing.
Because they can,
Yeah, because they can. But yeah, I think Demand is right. That seems to be what they're doing with Westworld. So yeah, there's probably not a reason to expect them to break that. Like if that's how... I think one thing HBO does is it doesn't have it never has like 2 of its prestige shows airing at the same time. Just because it's spreading those out and making it tougher for people who are paying for a subscription. They're like, I kind of wanted to cancel it, but this next thing's coming up.
That's such a good point.
Right. That's interesting. No, I was also not aware of that being an HBO thing. I mean, if that ends up being the case, then That's unfortunate because it's a long, long time to wait. But if that is just how it is, that's how it is, so.
Right.
Lots of content to watch in between.
True.
Yeah. This is us looking towards, well, in the future, but like, what are we even going to talk about for all of 2021?
Right?
Buffy.
Yes. It will turn into a Buffy podcast. I love it. Yeah, and that's really interesting how D-Man talked about how, like, the first season of Whedon shows are good, but usually the other seasons are better. Sorry, Firefly.
Yes. Yeah. But, we feel like Firefly is just like this complete anomaly of life.
It's very true, because the first season's incredible. Yeah, season 2 of Buffy is my favorite season for personal reasons, just because I love Angelus and Spike and Drusilla more than life itself. So by default, season 2 is my favorite. But I feel like with the Nevers, I could be wrong. I feel like since Joss has so much experience, and I feel like since the Buffy first season was like a pilot season, I feel like this first season of the Nevers will be just as good as like a second season of a Whedon show. Again, maybe I'm way too optimistic, but I don't know.
I also think it'll come out pretty strong. That's my feeling.
I think one of the reasons people really tend to like the second and third seasons is because so much of his shows are character driven, and it does take a little while to like totally understand the characters.
Right.
So there's no real way to rush that necessarily.
That is a great point. Oh, I love that. and I love that Joss does that, because to me, the most important thing in storytelling is character. Like, you could have the best plot and the best subplots and like anything else, but if you don't love the characters more than anything, it's like pointless, in my opinion.
Yeah. There needs to be that to pull you back in.
Exactly. So I'd rather there have like a first season that's a little quote unquote slower if it means that we'll get to know these characters,
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Those were some awesome questions. Thank you guys so much for sending them into us, and please keep them coming. That'll do it for us today. Thank you guys so much for listening and being part of the Nevers podcast community. Please remember to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any episodes when they go live. And feel free to rate us on iTunes, as that will really help us grow our audience, unless you absolutely hate us. I'm just kidding. You could find us on hbothenevers.com, and you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search at HBO The Nevers. And remember, you can always send us your comments, questions, concerns, anything at theneverspodcast@gmail.com, and we'll read them on an upcoming episode. Before we officially wrap, is there anything else you two would like to add?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I hope to come on again.
I want to say that I am so beyond excited that Joss is getting a new TV show. It's long overdue, and I am really ready for this. I'm really, really excited for the show.
Yay, and so am I. And I think we have an awesome podcast crew to take you guys through this amazing journey that we're going to have. All right, Kelly and Dennis, where can people find you guys online? What are your Twitter names?
I'm on Twitter as at DENISCOMIX, and that's also my .com. You can follow my other podcast, Buffy Virgin. Our Twitter is Buffy Virgin Pod. And you can follow my Patreon, which is my full name, DENISSTJOHN. That's Dennis St. John, for my new horror comics. They're being printed right now just exclusively on there. I don't have a publisher for them yet, but you can see my older stuff online. If you search Land of Many Monsters and Many More Monster Tales, you can find my book from 2017. All right. Yeah, thank you guys.
Great. So, again, my name is Kelly, and thank you for allowing me to be a co-host on this kind of, I don't want to say groundbreaking, but like the very first podcast or project seemingly related to the Nevers. So I'm really happy to be a part of that right now. It's amazing.
Right?
Exactly, right? We're on top of this. We're super pumped, super nerdy folks. So it's great.
I never said I was nerdy.
You don't have to say it. We know. It's fine. So I'm on Twitter at @KGredner. That's my name. I'm also on Instagram under Venal Anatomica, which is VENAL_Anatomica. I also have a semi-academic, bit of a feminist horror project called The Spinsters of Horror. And you can pretty much find us anywhere at Horror Spinsters or at Spinsters of Horror. We have a podcast, reviews, blog posts, and stuff like that. So I'm all over the place.
So definitely feel free to follow them. And again, my name is Gina, and you can find me on Twitter. And my Twitter username is at Gina Gemini, but I spell Gemini Gemeni, so an E in the middle. My twin sister and I are the lead singers of our band called Gemini, so that's why my name is that way. And we also have Buffy inspired songs. That's a whole other topic.
Ooh, nice.
But feel free to follow me. And we also have written a Sherlockian novella that takes place in Victorian London. It's actually in the first person point of view of James Moriarty. Yeah, so as you can tell, I obviously love Victorian London. And again, all of us do, and it's very exciting. And thank you guys so much again for listening, and we will talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We are more than just a podcast. We're a fan community. You can keep up to date on the Nevers and chat with other fans by visiting hbothenevers.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Just search HBO The Nevers, all one word, and click that follow button.